Hello, I'm Helen from Journal with Purpose and welcome to my latest YouTube video. Today I'm going to be sharing a tutorial from my second book. I put some polls up on Instagram as to whether people wanted more tutorials from my first or second book, and it was quite close, so I'm actually going to do a little bit of both. So I'm going to just start really working through this book in various videos, just showing you how I created some of these pages so that hopefully it helps you to get them in your own journals too. So I'm going to start off with a habit tracker. Now in my bullet journals until now, I've been doing this style of habit tracker, which has worked really well for me. I've been using this same format probably for about 3 or 4 years now. But because I'm changing how I'm doing some of my planning next year, some of these categories here, which is to do with my social media posting, I'm actually going to be doing in a separate journal. And I want to simplify some of the habits that I'm tracking at the moment, because some I feel that I've got into a really good place. So there's others then in 2023 that I want to give a bit more focus to. So I'll be tracking less things, but hopefully putting more focus on those things, if that makes sense. So in this book, the Layout Ideas 101, from page 14 onwards, there's a few different habit trackers in here. I'm going to be doing this circular one today, but you've got a breakdown of that habit tracker that I've just shown you. And this style also works really well if you've just perhaps got 1 or 2 habits that you want to track, so you can just put a line through, perhaps in different colours of the days that you've done them. And then I've got some other kind of calendar ideas here and some flowers that are broken down into the number of petals of the day. And again, great if you want to just focus on 1 or 2 different habits. So quite a few different options in there, and there's some writing prompts behind if there's things that you want to start thinking about with the habits that you want to really focus on next year and start making improvements in your life in certain areas. I find habit tracking is really helpful if things are starting to go a little bit kind of wrong in certain areas of my life. If I go back to my habit tracker, I can often find the answers there of the things that I've stopped doing or not been doing as often as I'd planned to. So I'm going to be using an A5 dotted journal for this, but absolutely any type of journal is fine. And the first thing I'm going to do is start drawing in some circles for this. And you want to decide how many habits you want to track. And in this example, there are 6. So we've got 6 lines in there. And I'm going to be sticking with that 6 for this example as well. So I'm going to be using a compass. And you want to start off really by getting it about as wide as you can comfortably get it on your page. So I think that's probably about right. And if you're using dotted paper, it might help you actually to go from a dot with where your pencil is. Okay, so I've got my first line in there. And I'm then going to bring my compass in about 1 dot. And I'm going to keep doing that until I've got my 6 lines drawn for the 6 habits that I want to track. I think these end up being really pretty habit trackers and really effective to see where your gaps are. If you do an end of month review like I do, it's really good to have that visual record of perhaps any little gaps that have started to creep in. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines there at the moment, and I want to track 6 habits. So I've now got my 6 there. The next thing I'm going to do is use my protractor, and circles are really handy because they've got 360 degrees, and I want to be able to break this down into how many days there are. So if I was looking at November, for example, I'd want 30 different spaces. If it's December, I'd want 31, and so I'm just going to mark these at 10-degree intervals, so then I'll have a little gap at the top for being able to add in my descriptions for the different habits. So I've got my 0 placed at the top, and I'm just going to start drawing these lines out. If you don't get these precise, which this probably won't be because my outer circle is bigger than my protractor, really don't worry, it doesn't have to be completely precise. So I'm just going to quickly draw all of these lines in. Okay, now I've got those, I'm going to mark where my centre point is on the circle, and then I'm going to use my ruler to draw a line just with the ruler lined up with that inside dot, and start adding these lines all the way around. And I do it in pencil first, so that if there's anything which stands out as being a bit irregular, maybe I've miscalculated something, at least I can correct that first. Okay, now I've got that down in pencil, I'm going to ink in my circles and the different sections, and for this I'm going to use a Sakura Pigma Micron with a 02 nib. I want to make sure it's something in ink that's not going to smudge when I add colours in here later. And again, don't worry about being too precise with this, it's going to look really pretty anyway. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes now to ink in each of these lines. I've now got all of my lines inked in and I've erased my pencil marks. So the next thing I'm going to do is start adding some numbers around the outside so that I've got my sections for each day of the month. And I've set this one up, I hope, to have 31 sections. And now that I've got those numbers all the way around, I'm going to add in the habits that I want to track throughout the month. and I want mine to really focus on health and well-being, so the habits that I'm going to write down in here are going to relate to that. But if you're wanting to focus more on perhaps a tidy home, you might put some habits in here that you wanted to track and make sure that you did each day of the week or on a regular basis, or something for personal development, new skills you want to learn. So just have a think about the sorts of habits that you really want to be focusing on during the month that you'll be using this. And once you've got those habits, the way that you'd use the habit tracker is by colouring in each day that you did those particular habits. And I like to use a combination of 2 pens. I've got some Zebra Mildliner brush pens here. But so for my first one, I've got long walk, and I might decide that I'd do this one in a blue. And say I managed to do it on the first and second day of the month, I just colour those in, and then maybe again on the 4th. And then for hydration, so good levels of that, maybe I've managed to do the first 3 days. And then I alternate these pens of the colours just so that I've got that kind of clear block between them. I can easily see which of the habits I'm focused on, and I also think it just looks really nice at the end when you've got all of that complete. Now the next thing I want to do is add a heading to my page. So I thought I would use one of the examples from my first book and add one of these banners at the top of my page. So I'm going to start off by doing a rectangle. Again, dots are really helpful for this. I'm then going to draw a little line, 1 dot in from each side below the rectangle. I'm going to join that up to the end to make a triangle. And then I'm going to bring this along 1, 2, 3, I think I might go 4 along. Do another line in the middle of the rectangle this time. Add some little points on the end. I'm going to do the same with this end. And I'm going to finish off with just adding some little lines in that bit where the ribbon is folded. And that now gives me somewhere nice to write in habits, and for this I'm going to use a Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen with a firm nib. And as always, I'll try and remember to leave links to everything that I've used in the description box down below the video. And I'm going to add a little bit of colour to my banner. One of the reasons I like to add decorative elements to my journal pages is, for me, if they look attractive to me, then I'm encouraged to write in them and use them every day. if I'm just faced with a blank piece of paper or something, just even in black and white, I'm not as drawn to it. But having those colours and knowing that by the end of the month all of this will be filled in with colour if I can carry out enough habits, actually really encourages me to do them. I suppose it's a bit like kind of the star charts you'd have as a child, but you really want to see that complete as much as possible. But I also think it's important not to give yourself a hard time if there are gaps, and to have a think about why there were gaps and then perhaps what you can do to just get it filled in a little bit more the month after. I just want to add one final bit of decoration to this. And again, from my first book, I've got 2 pages there of arrows decorations on pages 26 and 27. So I think I'm going to add a nice little simple arrow along the bottom. And again, obviously not essential at all. They're just things that I really enjoy having in my journals, these little decorations. So I'm going to start off with a line. And I'm going to draw a little pointed triangle on one end. And I'm going to have some hearts in the middle. I'm going to colour those in black. I really like playing around with different themes of decorations, different colour palettes, often inspired by the colours around me in nature, but not always. Sometimes I just want something really bright and vibrant on my page. I'm going to draw 3 little lines either side. And then finish off with some little loops at the end. And then just add some little colours into here. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing that and it's given you some ideas for your own journals. So yeah, in my second book you can find other examples in there under the Track Those Habits pages, and also lots of decorative elements from within my first book. If you like this but think that you're not going to have time or the inclination to draw these out, if you go over to my website journalwithpurpose.co.uk, on my free printables section I've got quite a few different printables in there that you can just print off and use. You need to be subscribed to my newsletter to get the password, but then you can print off anything you like from there. So I'm always going to encourage you to have a go at doing something yourself, but I do have those options available, as I said, under the free printables section. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's joined me over on Patreon. Well, I hope you're doing really well. Thank you ever so much for watching. I look forward to speaking with you really soon in my next video.